This is poke. Grows all over the South. This plant will probably get, more like 8 to 10 feet tall, left alone, getting enough sunshine, because poke gets pretty big. If you'll notice, the stem of it has already turned red, which means it's not edible anymore, that it would be moving into a more toxic state. The root is the part of the plant most often used for medicine. It was very popular in the early 1900s as for rheumatism, and fell out of favor, I guess, around the 1950s as a 40s, 50s as a rheumatism medicine. But poke berries are also very useful, and if you don't crush or swallow the seeds of the berries, and the old folks would, a couple ways to do it. First day you have one berry, the second day you swallow 2 berries, and you swallow the berries whole. Third day you have 3 berries, and on so forth until you either get up to 7 or 10 berries. I've heard 7 berries, I've heard 10 berries. And then you start decreasing the amount, so you get up to 10 berries a day, and then the next day you say you have 9, the next day 8, 7, and on so forth until you come back down to 0. Another way to use the berries is to gather several berries and put them in a quart jar of water, and just stick them over on your kitchen counter for the evening, and overnight the water will turn a nice pink color, and then you drink the water the next day. It's the seeds that contain the toxic components, and as long as you don't break the seed, then you won't get that. So if you swallow the berries whole and you don't chomp down on them, the seed isn't broken, so you won't get that toxin.
Get some of the toxins.
You'll only get a few of them.
The whole plant is full of toxins.
Yes, the whole plant is full of toxins, but you get the lesser amount that way. And 2 weeks here in Arab, we're going to have our Polk Salad Festival with our Polk Salad Cook-Off, and several of the ladies around town scheme and plot all year long to come up with the best poke salad recipe. So it's nice that we found this plant, because most of the poke salad has been picked in the last 3 weeks as everybody gets ready for the big festival. Poke salad will be served in the restaurants along with fried green tomatoes and pinto beans and mashed potatoes. Yummy. I'm getting but poke is one of my favorite lymphatic remedies in the right amount. It really can help decongest lymph nodes and reduce inflammation and fever in the glands in the neck, the nodes in the neck, and just an excellent lymphatic remedy. I have read that it's contraindicated in lymphocytic leukemia, but I have not had experience with that. Matthew, do you have any other uses for poke?
Well, it's anti-cancer as the usual.
Yes, you're right, anti-cancer, but okay, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, and yet it is carcinogenic. So it's a plant, you use it in smaller amounts. Generally, that's how it's used, to clean the lymphatics and assist, and it fights cancer. I have not used it for cancer, but it's definitely been used by people.
Especially breast cancer, I think, here in the South anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of for lethargy in the glands. Big glanded people, big breasted, and kind of pokey, where you need a poke, where you come home at the end of the day and you just throw yourself on, I feel like this right now, just throw yourself on the couch and just watch TV and sit there. And gives people a poke, gets them going, gives them energy. And if you look at the plant, the way it droops, it's like really droopy. It's not like just leaning over, it's droopy. Also, and it's kind of that fiery look, and yet it droops over, you know. It's really toxic. I remember before we learned better, the only time we ever did it at the herb store where I worked, somebody wanted 3 ounces of poke root ground, so we heroically set out to grind it. Well, it's hard to grind, and then it like just totally makes the whole atmosphere toxic. We had to do it outside for a while. Nobody could stand to do it for very long. It makes you cough. And in fact, I remember reading about drug companies' problems with it in the earlier 20th century. They had problems processing it because it made everybody sick.
Yeah,
So
those irritating crystals are really rough on the tissues. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like one of those plants where there's a lot of medicine and a lot of poison mixed together. And so you'd use it like the way I use it. Say I have a tincture of it. I'd take 1 ounce bottle and fill it with calendula, say, and put in 1 dropper full of poke. And so, it could be some other mix of lymphatic remedies, but I'm just that's one of the ones I particularly use. And so it's like a medium, like you can thin it out that way. You don't need a lot to get a good, powerful effect from it too. It's used in homeopathy as well as herbalism. So it's also good for sore throat. It was used for diphtheria. One of my students gave me a good keynote. It's for when you stick out your tongue and it hurts because of the area right in there that gets swollen. It's specific to poke root. So can't think of much else about it.
Well, if you're going to cook with it, you pick the young, tender green leaves just as they come up without any red on the stalk. Red on the stalk is a sign not to pick the leaves. And then you have to wash them you have to cook them and then pour out that water, add fresh water, cook them again, pour off that water, and then cook them again for the 3rd time before they're safe enough to eat. So that is a very important aspect. In the South we're a little more nonchalant about it because people just do this. Everybody just knows that you have to cook it 3 times. You have to pour off all those waters. People make jam and jelly out of the berries, eating on hot buttered biscuits. But you have to mash up the berries, and then you have to strain it, which leaves the seed behind. So then you only get the berry. And people eat just a little bit of poke jelly or jam, about 2 or 3 times a week, and that was a good way to preserve it over the winter, so you had that medicine over the winter and could use that, was in the jams or jelly. Poke wine is not uncommon, but again, they strain the berries out of it. So even though it is a toxic plant, people still use it as food. It's still considered a food here and not just a medicine, as evidenced by the Polk Salad Festival. And a lot of work goes into preparing it. People still gather it, cook it up all those times, and then freeze it to have it over the winter. When you eat poke, there's a spinach-like taste to it, but different. It's much more acidy. You can really taste the acids. Even by the 3rd cooking, you can still taste the acids in the poke. So I agree with Matthew that it is a really serious plant you have to pay attention to, but I'm also a little more relaxed about it since it's so much a part of our culture here. Everybody grew up eating it, at some time.